Hi, it's me, Moxie again. Today, I'm going to attempt to take off Lumie's hands and feet because I want to do some body blushing on them. So that's the first step. Lumie came with these little safe parts here. So this is to just hold her body in place while we take them off. I had quite a struggle to get them on. So we're going to see how this is to take them off. So first we'll just move her little light. All right, so hand number one. So if I pull this out, you can see her strings right in here. I should be able to just slip this right in the string. Yeah, this is much easier than when I put them on the first time. And then that should hold the rest of her in place until we put these hands back on when we're done. All right, so let's try the second one. This one's a bit tougher. Here, we want to leave this wrist joint on too, so I don't have to struggle later with it. Okay, there we go. So I got that piece on. I'm going to take her hand gently off, so that'll hold that in place. So we got both her hands ready. Now we want to get her feet off. So we're just I'm gonna unbuckle her shoe here. Okay. Take her shoes off. She's going to look quite scary for a while until I finish these hands and feet. You can order them done from Dollmore. You just have to pay a little extra. But I figured I would just do it myself. This will be my second time actually blushing a doll, so we'll see how it comes out. So we got her tights off. Look at her cute feet. I forgot how cute they were. So we'll get these little safe parts again for the feet. It's a little bit of a struggle. And get the foot off. Come on, come on. Did it. And then this just goes right back up in to keep it on. So we got one foot off, and we want the other foot off. Okay. Just going to put the safe part in and get the foot off. Okay, good. The first step, really all I'm going to do is sand out her lines. You can also pay a little bit extra to have body sanding done from Dollmore as well, but I find it just easier to do myself. So let's put her feet up, put her hands up. So we'll just start with this one. So she has a little bit of a seam here and here, and on the side you can see a seam here. It's not flush with the rest of her hand. So all I'm gonna do really is I just got a regular nail file. You can get these anywhere. Beauty supply store, CVS, wherever. I'm just gonna give it a little buff out. Kind of start kind of gentle. I don't want to mess it up or anything. So give it a little bit of a buff here. I also got this one, which is like a sanding block, because I wasn't sure what type of grit I would need. I'll do the other hand later. Let's check out the feet and see what they look like. So I guess there's just a seam right here. Not really too noticeable. I think that's really the only seam. There's like a little bit of something here, and that's really it on the feet. So I think this one will be pretty easy. So that's the basic idea anyway, how you're going to do it, or at least how I did it. I'll do the other two later. And then after those are all done, what I'm going to do, I won't do it now because this stuff can be toxic, but this is Mr. Super Clear. So basically what this is it's a matte spray. I'm going to put on just 2 coats. So I'm going to put 1 coat on. I'm going to let that dry probably for like a day. And then I'm going to put another coat on just so we have something for the actual paint and the blushing to stick to. Hi guys, I'm back again to do the painting of the toes. I'm going to do the half moons and I'm going to do the toenails. And I also did them on the hands already. So what I did first is I used some clear Tamiya hobby paint and also white. And so I just mixed up a few drops of the clear with a few drops of the white, about 1-to-1 ratio. I'm going to use for painting the Maestro brush, which I find to be very nice because you can get a very thin point, but it also holds a lot of paint. So I'm going to take a blank foot here just to give you an idea what I did with the other ones. And I'm just going to get in there and I'm going to paint the half moons on. And so depending on how thick, how white the paint is, you might have to put a couple coats on here. I did with the other ones. Just going to do the one for now to show you what it did. And the little itty bitty toe. And I also just have an extra toothpick lying around, so if I need to scrape the paint a little bit, if I need to shape it, I can go ahead and do that. That way you don't have any excess paint and spots that it's not supposed to be. Now after that, I'm just going to do regular white. Put a little bit in my ceramic dish here to work with. That way I don't have to leave this open for too long so it doesn't get dried out. A little bit of thinner here. So what you can do with that, you can put it in there, or you can just put a little bit on the paper towel, wipe your brush off. That way your paint doesn't get sticky and your brush doesn't get too sticky. So I'm going to get in that white, and basically I'm just going to paint the tip of the toenails. And so these ones I did twice. I did an initial layer, and then after that was sort of dry, I put another layer on there. Okay, so here we have it. I'm gonna let this dry, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, the next step is going to be doing the watercolor on the shadows of the feet and the hands. So here I've done some watercolor in between the toes, and I've made the lines for the toes and on the bottom for the creases. And then I also did the hands, so I did the little creases in the hands, and I did just a little bit in between the fingers here for the shadowing. And then on the bottom you can see how I did the little outlines here. So I'm just going to show you how I did that today real quick. Here's what I decided to use. I went with the Faber-Castell, which is a very high quality watercolor pencil. This color is Venetian Red, so that'll give me a good shadow to start. I also have just a brush to, if I need to brush off some of the excess powder from the actual pencil. I have a brush to dip in the water, that's the Maestro again, in case I need to go in there and just even out some of that paint a little bit with some water. And then I also have a tool that I use just for if I have a little excess paint that I need to take off, I can go in there and just do a little fine tuning with the sanding. So this is kind of like a, you can get these at the craft store too. It is a tool that they use for just sanding watch pieces, I guess. But you can get various types of these. It's just like a metal sander. Alright, so here's a blank hand. So I left one hand blank. We'll start with this. So I'm not going to get the pencil wet yet. I'm just going to start making the lines. So here on the hands, I look for the already where the lines are, the indentations. And so I'm just going to go in there and do a little lightly going over those. And so I'll just check out my other hand to see exactly how I did it there. So it's similar. Now I also have a pencil sharpener here, just to mention, to keep that handy in case you do need it. These work very good with a really sharp edge. I have the cup of water here. So this one I didn't really need to use too much on the thin lines for the hand, but what I did just to smooth out the paint on the inside, just put a little bit of water in between to smooth that shadow out and to fill in some of the parts that you can't really get because you're pretty deep in there. So once I've got that part done, then what I did was I went over the other pieces with this sanding tool. And so the parts where I had just a little bit too much paint, I would just go in there and I can even that out a little bit. Take some of that off and just brush the excess. And then you just go through and you shape that how you want. If I made a little mistake, I can just take that off like that. So a little bit of sanding and brush it off. Now when I'm done with all this part, what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna take that matte spray paint again and I'm gonna put that clear coat. I'm gonna put that on the front and the back, and then I'm gonna let that dry. And so once that is dry, then we can move on to our next step. So now what we're going to do is we're going to see how to do the shading on the hands and the feet. So for this I have a bunch of different materials. I got this pastel chalk from Volks, which is some blush tones and some skin tones. And then what I did was I just took a nail file to make it the powder pretty ground down, and I ground some in each of my bowls. I have 3 different colors because I wanted to do a color for the nail beds. I wanted to do a dark color for in between like the joints of the finger and the toes, and then I wanted to do a lighter pink just to do the shading on the rest of the hands and the feet. So the other materials I have at the ready, of course this sanding block, in case I make a mistake I can just buff the chalk off real quick. I have this smudging tool, which I also got from Volks. So it's just kind of like, it has black with a replaceable ends that you can put on. And it's like a very thick foam, so you can spread the chalk on there and it'll stay a lot better. For any fine tuning mistake wise, I also have teeny tiny little Q-tips. Also got those from Volks. And as well, I just got this regular kind of shading brush. It's called Royal No. 2 Soft Grip. I don't know if this is a generic or really good, but that's what I used. This brush, I just got a fluffy brush here that I used to kind of brush off any of the excess chalk. It's just like super fluffy $1 brush from the craft store. So here's what I did just to give you an idea. I did the feet already. So with the feet, I did just over the half moons, I did a little bit of shading on the nails. And then I did some of the darker pink red shading in between the toes on the tops and the bottoms. And as well over the lines where I had done the paint before. And then I took that lighter pink and I went in between and I did some shading around the sides. I did some shading on the bottom. Once I had done all that, I went ahead and I sprayed that again with the matte spray. So I'm just going to show an example of how to do the hand. So I did this one already, and I did the shading on the nails and also on the top and the bottom of the palm. So we'll see how I did that. So first thing I did, I started with the nails. So as you can see, these ones are still blank, no shading on them yet. And I'm going to use this center color, which is, it's a mix between brown and a lavender. So I just put a little bit on there. And I'm going to put this right below the moons. So I'm just going to work it on there below the moons. And I'm also going to do the indentations along the side of the nail. So I'm just going to squish it in there. And I had to do about 2 or 3 coats of this, just to make it look dark enough. Okay, now as you see how I did on this hand, the knuckles are a little bit darker, so that's because I used the red pink mix. So I'm going to do that on this hand as well. So just wipe off my smudger there. And so this is the mix that I did. I just did like brown and some of the dark pink, and it turned like this kind of reddish, nice color. So I'm just gonna make those like a little bit ruddy. And I think I did, yeah, I did these as well. Okay. And then on the underside, I used the tip, the very tip of the smudger, and I just went over all of these lines on the hand with that dark red color too, just to make it look a little bit more shaded and a little bit better than just having watercolor lines drawn on there. Gives it a little bit more depth. On the other one, I also went in between the fingers where I had done a little bit of the watercolor pencil. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go over that and just kind of extend it a little bit like a shadow. on the inside fingers where I had put that paint. And you'll be able to fix this. I put a little bit too much in there. I'll just sand it off before I spray it. So that looks pretty good. Okay. So I'm just going to fix this spot up a little bit. Get off some of that excess. Okay, so I'm done with that brush for now. I'm gonna do, well, you know what, I am gonna use this one more time because I'm gonna start with the lighter color. I'm gonna put some of this shading right in between the fingers here. Make that shadow come out a little bit, and then I'm going to start with just this regular brush. And so we're going to work in some of the shading like I did here on the hands. So what I tried to do, and I put this one here for reference, what I tried to do here was just to work alongside these finger, like the tendons, the bones there, just to highlight that part. And so really all you have to do is you go right onto the outside. Ignore the cat. That's pretty much it for that. What I'm going to do after this is I'm going to go over some of those areas, make them a little bit darker where I want them to be. And I'll do any fine-tuned sanding. I might go in and just go over some of these areas that I definitely want to be lighter. And then I'll spray it, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so here's the very last thing that I'm going to do. I'm just going to take the clear acrylic paint here, and I'm going to put it over the nails to make them shiny. Give them some gloss. And I will probably do a second coat after this dries, just so they are super shiny. And so there you have it.